My guest today is Chris Walker, the CEO and founder of Refine Labs, an agency helping SaaS startups and SMEs on B2B revenue operations and growth and demand gen in particular. Welcome, Chris. Great to have you on the show.
Sandro, great to see you, man. Very happy to be here.
Thank you. I found you on LinkedIn, and you are on fire over there. I mean, I'm actually staggered by the quantity of qualitative videos that you put out. What? Let's maybe start there. Like, what is your process like so that you can achieve such consistency on LinkedIn specifically?
So, first, let's talk about why other people don't do it. And so, other people don't post videos on LinkedIn at the frequency that I do or at all because they don't get as many views, because the metrics are more important than the outcome. And I know from experience, no data to back this. I don't think that most people, I don't need data to make my own decisions for my business. And so the data is clear to me that when you post video more frequently, you get better business results. And so that's one, is that people just don't do it because they would rather get 40,000 views on a text post than 4,000 views on a video post, because the views make them feel good. And the way that I create the videos is by doing stuff like this, usually like free consulting, our hour to 90-minute Tuesday night Zoom that I do with Gaetano Donardi with live Q&A for marketers around the world, podcasts, different things like that. We create a long form video, we chop it up, and then we post it on LinkedIn. The last thing is that I'm fully committed to it. And I say this a lot, is that most people are not. And you're just, if you're doing a million different things and LinkedIn is just one little thing on the side over here, you're probably not going to get the results that you're looking for. And so just purely based on commitment to the channel and understanding it better than anyone else and executing better than anyone else on it is why I've been able to get the success I have.
And now it's probably not always been like this, I guess, right? I mean, can you fill us in on like how you started out in marketing and like, you know, the struggles that you went through to arrive at such like clarity, like you describe it now?
Absolutely. So early on in my marketing career, I think I've had 4 or 5 key checkpoints where they were major advancements in my career. The first one was in 2014 when I went and started talking to a ton of customers when I worked in-house, and I learned how much value it created to actually understand people before you started marketing to them. Most marketers that are downstream or demand gen don't do that. The next one that happened was that in 2000, probably around the same time, actually, 2014, 2015, I built several e-commerce stores in my bedroom, selling things on Shopify and Instagram and Amazon, running media dollars with my own money, buying inventory with my own money, and then needing to sell it in order to pay my rent, and learned how to run profitable advertisements, which most marketers do not know how to do. Most marketers get $100,000 to multi-million-dollar budget from their employer and spend it like it's monopoly money. And so that was another key one. The third one was in 2016, 2015, 2016, when I deeply understood how to execute Facebook ads to make B2B business results happen. And during that time, I struggled a lot to communicate to executives why spending $100,000 a month on Facebook ads was better than having 4 SDRs, or better than having another sales rep, or better than building another trade show booth. And so that was a really interesting point in my career where, in order to continue to move forward in the things that I want, I needed to figure out how to frame it to a sales-focused executive about why this was a better way to generate sales. And so that was a huge moment for me. And then there was a lot of resistance. It was an interesting time for me. And 4 years later, I still have the same conversations with sales focused executives about how this stuff doesn't work. And I've been
Sure.
doing it for 4 years and I know that it works. So that was a big one. And then finally, when I started my own company, and needed to figure out, I had been using a lot of paid channels predominantly, and had built, selling stuff on Instagram, had built Instagram channels, started moving to LinkedIn. Started first with commenting and engaging, got several clients just purely based on the awareness generated by my comments. Like, it's unbelievable.
Mhm.
And then had one post that I made where it was the first time that it was like, woof, like I'm normally getting 3, 4, 7 likes on a text post.
Uh-huh.
It must have had someone that had a level of engagement engage with it. I saw it, and then I was like, boom, this is what we're doing. Like, we're not hiring sales reps. We're not sending outbound emails. We're not doing sequences. We're doing this. And got 100% committed to figuring out how to do that the best. And my background in digital social content certainly helps. Like, I didn't just pop out of nowhere and say, yeah, let's make videos for LinkedIn. I've been doing
Right.
this for 5 or 6 years. The LinkedIn became the channel that worked for me.
So let's unwrap some of those that you um, just mentioned, some of the lessons. You started out with customer research, being like an epiphany in your job, and I still find it fascinating how infant this idea still is in many marketing departments. Can you talk about like what customer research means when we talk about marketing, and then also like how the process looks like, and if you would have to do an 80/20, like what can you recommend the marketer today? I've never done market research before, or like customer research before.
Mhm.
What do you recommend?
So I think a lot of marketers pretend like they're doing customer research when they send an NPS once a year, or they send a market research survey to their customers so they can build an ebook, or that they listen to a couple recorded sales calls on Gong and pretend like they learned something, or when they ask their sales reps for feedback about what feature is selling best. Those are all those are all pretend ways of doing customer research. As a marketer, the true way to do customer research is go to the source. It's called primary market research, not secondary market research through somebody else. And so primary market research, there's a lot of different ways that you can slice it. I have a specific approach that I like. This is like a 3.0 strategy, so people can work backwards and figure out what their 1.0 would be. But for me, the first step that I'm going to take is I'm going to talk to somewhere between 5 and 10 thought leaders, people that I think lead the space. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to 10 I'm going to segment our customers, determine what firmographic or whatever type of things you need to use to segment your customers, usage, anything. And I'm going to go and talk to 10 of the people that fit in this. I'm going to talk to 10 of each segment. Usually there's going to be 3 or 5 segments. I'm going to go, and ideally you actually go and see them. And then I'm going to talk and I'm going to learn with no open-ended agenda. I have some things that I want to learn, but it's 100% curious. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to people that do not use our product,
Mm-hmm.
that inside of all of those different segments, and understand what the gaps are between the people that don't and the people that do. The next thing is that I'm going to synthesize all of those learnings, and I'm probably going to create a more scaled market research survey that happens over the internet, that is not divided between customers and not. It's 100% randomized, to understand more deeply about how people are buying technologies or what they choose, mainly for that mechanism, to be honest, to prove to executives that they should be doing something different. I did that in 2016. It was one of the main ways that I figured out how to get more money to do the things that I believed in that were getting results, is by when when you send out a survey to 600 of your ideal customers and they respond and they say, the first thing that I do when I'm evaluating a new technology is I look online.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing that I do is I call a friend or a colleague that I know has experience with a similar product. The third thing that I do is talk to a sales rep. And you can easily paint a picture with how our go-to-market strategy was completely misaligned with how someone wanted to buy something. And then another question, just for sake of data that illuminated a lot of things for people, is how many people use Facebook to understand medical technology. This is in 2016 when I was selling to hospitals.
Mm-hmm.
And 70% of people said they use it to understand. The next one was YouTube at 65%. The last one was LinkedIn at 60%. And so like, there you go. Like
Mm-hmm.
people are using these things to learn. Underneath a lot of those things was visit someone's trade show booth. And so like just by talking to customers, it was clear to both me and I was able to demonstrate it to executives about what the things that we're doing and how they don't match with what buyers want.
So I think this ties in nicely with something that I saw you talking on LinkedIn a lot about, which is this notion of how devastating it can be for a marketing team to focus solely on, the amount of leads that you generate and not actually having a profile, or an ICP if you want, or an ideal customer profile defined and actually measuring against, like, okay, how many of this specific lead category do I actually acquire? So if I am, because I've seen this happening a lot, and
Me
so
too.
if, let's say I just started at a mid-size startup, Series B, just raised. I come in and none of what we just talked about has ever been done. There was no customer research, and marketing is completely incentivized on the amount of leads. So like, we covered some of the customer research initiatives that you would launch, like, but how do you turn the story from the amount of leads that I need to generate to like something that makes more sense? So what is that makes more sense? And then how do you kind of turn the story so that you can actually shift your budget and your resources to that better thing?
So as a marketer, I've been in this exact situation. The only difference in what the story that you painted and the one that I was in is that it was post seed, not Series B. Okay. And so I get in there. The company is investing no money in product, has 6 SDRs and 5 account executives and 1 sales leader, no marketing headcount, has done no customer research. The sales is going after any segment that might fit their TAM, has no focus on who would actually have the most affinity to buy, has done no research in the CRM about which customers actually are buying stuff. And when you go in there and segment it, it's very clear. And so I get in there right away, forced to run performance marketing to get leads. And when I realized this, we built a new website, started running performance marketing, got 505 leads for less than $6 each, firmographically fit ICP. And the consensus from sales is that we don't want these leads. And so that there was two core conclusions there. The first one for me is, wow, I need to go and talk to customers about how to better position our product so they want it. And the second thing is that it's only a lead if there's buying intent. And so like, just because you have someone's email address and they firmographically fit your ICP does not mean that they're a lead, does not mean that people from sales want to talk to them. And so I've talked to a lot of marketers right now that are running LinkedIn conversational ads to, and saying, hey, if you set up a demo, we'll give you a $250 gift card. And then they wonder why their sales team, and then they get 100 leads, and they wonder why later their sales team comes back and says, we don't want to talk to these people.
Right.
No shit, because they're here for the gift card, not because they want to buy something. And so, yeah. So anyway, got all those leads, didn't work, went out and did the customer research, broke it in, just like I told you, broke it into 3 segments, visited thought leaders, and then visited people in all 3 segments. And I realized that the segment that the product was actually used in and actually got value and actually fit was only 20% of the TAM. And sales is over here saying, oh, this segment over here is 70% of the TAM. The market's huge. This is who we're going to sell to. And I visited them. First off, we had 4 customers in that segment, and all 4 of them used the product because one of the people that worked at the company was friends with our investor. None of them actually really got value out of the product. And then you actually start to look, and it's like our SDRs are calling on all these people where the product isn't positioned the right way. They don't get value out of it. We're wasting a ton of time. And all over here, 20% of the market that really has value, really sees value, we could position it if we went more focused. And the company just chose not to narrow the positioning of the product in order to facilitate that. And so I always like to, more narrow is better. Like as I've started to go this, before I was talking about marketing, and as I've started to be marketing for B2B SaaS, and then specifically in media, and then specifically to this type of company, and then specifically at this ACVs and at this sales cycle. And as you get more narrow, the content hits harder because it's more specific. And so that is a real world example of doing market research, knowing what the right answer is, but also understanding that like companies got to continue, especially venture funded companies have got to continue to raise money. And so if they come back and they say, oh, actually our TAM is only 20% of what we reported to during our Series A, we're gonna have to do a down round. It's just not going to work.
And so when you talk about like, having this conversation with sales, because that's oftentimes something that is either avoided or there is a clash. Like what is your approach when you have to deal with a VP of sales and they're telling you like, oh, the leads are shit, but then the CEO tells you, hey, you need to have this many leads. So like, how do you bring the people to the table? Because in the end, everybody has kind of the same goal, right? But they're not really talking about the same thing. So how do you facilitate that? I mean, you talked about data, you talked about customer voices. Like, how does it look like specifically? Do you call a meeting? Do you have set up the same metrics? Like, what's going on?
So I'm laughing because this is funny, but the easiest answer on this is that you should have all of this figured out before you start working at that company. And so like, and if there is any chance of misalignment, then get out. Because like, if you are a very talented marketer, you have a better place to work than struggling about why 2000 MQLs isn't the right metric. That's just the tip of the iceberg. You're going to have that exact same scenario in other metrics and other executions until the end of time, because those people, it's going to be very hard to change their mindset as leaders in those types of companies. And so my best advice is find a place that's already aligned with the things that you want to do and how you want to measure it. If in lieu of that, there are a couple things that I've seen to be more successful than others. The first one is just clear black and white data from customers, not your opinion, not in the CRM. Like, they said this. Like, it would be very, I know that a ton of people would be very, that would scrutinize how much time I spend on my podcast and LinkedIn, specifically on the podcast, right? Like, sure. Oh, you're doing this much on the podcast. You have 1,800 subscribers. You've been spending 4 hours a week on it or whatever you're doing. This is a waste of time. And then the data is, oh, well, the last 9 sales conversations we've had started with, I was listening to your podcast
Right.
And then you show them that type of stuff. And so clear data from customers, whether it's I would prefer this instead of what you're doing right now. I look here and you're not doing it. I learn here. I wish you did this and you're not. Whatever it is, use true primary customer data to support your points of view. The second one is to just have a deep look about what's going on today. This is by far the best one. I do it for dozens of companies every year and show them that, look, I know that you're spending $800,000 a year on LinkedIn ads for ebook downloads.
Sure.
Because I'm in the ad platform. I can see how much you spent. I can see what you're doing. A majority of it's spent to do that. And because it is direct response email address capture, we can track both at the persona level and at the account level all the way through for the past 12 months about what happened. And so here's what we did. We got all of these different leads. We had SDRs follow up with them. 2% of them got through to opportunities. The 2% that got through to opportunities closed at 10%, but our normal SQO earn rate's 25%, so it was actually even below average there. Out of all that $800,000 we spent, we got $100,000 in revenue. This was a waste of time. It was not only a waste of money, it was a waste of our sales team's time. It was a waste of our marketing team's time that could be doing something better that's more customer focused. And so if we agree that we don't need to be doing this, we don't need to be spending $800,000 and investing all this time to close three $30,000 ARR deals, then what else could we be doing? And that's where you get to insert the idea of what you could be doing. Now, if we look over here, the people that we're marketing to and are coming directly to us, typically with last touch attribution, organic search, or direct traffic, asking for a demo. Now, those ones are converting to opportunities at 55%. We're creating SQOs at 55%. We're winning those at 30%. The sales cycles are shorter than our outbound channel. Why don't we start to focus our marketing to assist that conversion point, which has dramatically higher efficiency than what we're doing over here? Oh, but wait, our leads would go down 95%. And so and I actually position this as a good thing. This is a good thing for so many reasons. The core reason is that your sales team can do things that are actually more productive, could actually innovate instead of making calls to all the leads that you're collecting that don't want to talk to them, that don't want to hear from them, that are not interested in buying something right now. Your AEs doing demos for people that win at such a lower rate than anything else. They're doing all these activities, so they can't create content, they can't conduct customer research, they can't do better account-based sales, whatever they want to do. There's so many other things that function could be doing. The second piece of it is that if you eliminate all of those sales inefficiencies created through the MQL metric, you'd probably need less salespeople.
Right.
And if people are like, oh my gosh, we're gonna have less salespeople, whatever. But if you didn't need so many salespeople, here's what you could do: you could pay them better. You could hire more experienced people. You could retain more of them. You could do more things to support their growth in industry knowledge and sales. But you can't do that when you have twice as many as you need and that you can afford. And so I think that it's a good thing if companies were able to do that. If you could get to the same growth target with 30, 60% of the reps instead of that, like, I think that's a good move for everyone. In addition, your customer acquisition cost goes way down.
Right. I think, first of all, the first thing you said is very practical advice, I think, especially if you have some years under your belt that you practice marketing for a while and you think you're talented. Don't waste your time at companies where you need to convince everyone. I recently talked to Dave Gerhardt, which is a CMO
awesome.
at Privy. He's awesome, and he was actually saying that if the CEO doesn't believe in marketing, he would not start at that company at all, because
I agree
it's
completely.
an uphill battle. It's an uphill battle, and that's so true. I mean, if you are engaged in stakeholder management, more than 50% of your time, that's the time you're not getting better at your craft, right?
Mm-hmm.
And about the other thing that you said, I think that's vastly underrated. I mean, I had this experience myself where, you were describing how you basically follow the money, and basically, see where it's actually flowing through, both on the cost side, but also on the revenue side. And then based on that, position your messaging, but also your product. And that's where I think a lot of value lies, as you described. The issue that I see oftentimes is afterwards, even if you have the data, even if you have the qualitative data in terms of customer voices or customer quotes, very few companies have the discipline to afterwards adapt the product down the line and actually focusing it on this new narrower target group. I mean, have you seen that before as well? And how do you deal with that? I mean, let's say marketing and sales kind of gets it, but then afterwards, the product doesn't actually follow through.
Yeah, for the sake of this, I'm just going to keep it in like marketing in the sense of positioning, not in product development or R&D and things like that.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, it is incredibly hard for companies to narrow their positioning because it feels like they're restricting who they can sell to. And the funny thing is that the smart ones already know to do that. So like, it's just you're not going to convince the ones that won't, and you don't need to convince the ones that already know. And that's just the way it is. Like, I really do believe that, that's kind of the way that it works.
I think at the very beginning, you talked a bit about like reporting and convincing, management or executives of certain activities. So what kind of metrics do you actually report up the chain to the executive board? Or, I mean, if you consult with a client, what do you recommend them to actually report on?
Once we've gone through 2 sales cycles, let's pretend the company is a 90-day sales cycle. So 180 days in, we're reporting on customer acquisition cost, inbound revenue, total revenue trending, and how it's broken up by partner or channel or direct or marketing, pipeline or SQOs, however you want to, qualified pipeline or SQOs, however you want to chalk it up, trending, sales cycle length on inbound versus outbound trending, win rate on inbound versus outbound trending, business metrics. Like, those are the things that actually matter. I am not reporting up to the CEO how many likes there were on our latest LinkedIn post or whether our website traffic went down 10%. The volume metric of website traffic alone means absolutely nothing. If you want website traffic, we can spend money and we can drive people to it. And if you want to spend the least amount of money possible, we can drive a bunch of shit traffic there for 10 cents a click, if that's what you want. But the website, like, the idea that because your website traffic goes from 80,000 a month to 40,000 a month, that is a bad thing, just on that one data point, means absolutely nothing. It's like, oh, okay, so our website traffic went down 50%, mainly because we spent way less, our targeting was way better, blah, 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 blah. And wait, we got way more demo requests. And so what matters more? Is it ICP demo requests or website traffic? Yeah.
But, what happened to me was, for example, in a previous role, was that we got started with kind of a podcast series where we interviewed on a weekly basis. We interviewed user researchers in that case. And, it took almost a year and a lot of convincing and kind of pushing back until, we could clearly see that something is going on there,
I
and
deal
and
with
and
it
it
every day.
and and so how do you, yeah, because you just said which metrics you are reporting um, to executives. Like, how do you convince them that this is actually worth doing? There is the performance based um, marketing, and then there is kind of the brand marketing bucket. How do you do that with the brand marketing bucket specifically? Like, what are the words you use? And yeah.
I don't spend any time convincing people to do what I believe in. I just I just do it. And the
Yeah.
people that are attracted to the way that we are currently marketing, or the company that watch the companies that we're currently marketing for, or are
Mm-hmm.
interested in the results that we're talking about, will come and find us, right? Like, the idea that I would go and chase around and try and convince a ton of I know that most executives don't believe in this. So
Mm-hmm.
why am I going? I know that the odds are not in my favor to go and chase people around and try and convince them of this. And so I don't. Um, and over time, more people, through the growth of our company and the success of our content and the success of the companies that we do work for, over time, people will start to realize that
Yeah.
it works better. The second piece that that we do, because it's essentially necessary, is that our mix isn't 100% brand. Like, we're running performance, we're running, if a company did an industry report, we're gonna run it, and they can put them in a nurture, they can do whatever they want to do. If they're going to do a webinar, we'll certainly support that. If they're going to do a virtual event, we'll crush it and have the best CPL. Like, those are, like, we'll do those things. We run experiments of, like, direct get a demo ads for mid to I don't know, I guess depending on how you want to say it, 6K to 50K ACV products. We're going to run get a demo ads and
Mm.
collect 20 to 100 leads every 6 months and see what happens, and track the data and make sure that we haven't missed anything, and do it on different channels. Like, we're still doing this stuff. I just know that over time, the brand piece wins. Like, it just does. And so
Absolutely.
but you need to do some of the performance based things to clear the space to allow the other stuff to work.
Mm-hmm. And also, I mean, you have some short and midterm, um, you know, ICP leads coming in, while it sort of picks up. Because, I mean, as you mentioned in the very beginning, in the beginning, probably your LinkedIn posts and your videos won't have like the engagement
Mm-hmm.
that yours have right now. And so, kind of bridging that gap, I think is still important.
For
What?
SaaS,
Yeah.
for product based companies, we'll put it that way, mainly SaaS tech, but whatever. The way that you break through this is that you use paid to clear the space for the organic to kick in. And
Mm-hmm.
so we use paid to distribute brand marketing content, to
Mm-hmm.
distribute a video or a press release, or a product announcement or a case study. And then ungated, no lead, no call to action. Nobody does that. And when you use paid to create the system, one, if you're doing it on LinkedIn, you're going to pick up a ton of followers.
Yeah.
Um, you're also going to create a bunch of awareness, and your content team is going to get better at creating content because you need to do it. And so then you use the paid content to distribute on organic while you build an organic pillar or four. Um, and that's the right way. And then over time, you're going to rebalance the budget and the focus once you have more traction organic.
Can you talk a bit more about that? Because I think that's very important. I mean, because um, this goes basically deep into strategy, especially when you're starting out. How, like, if I am just starting out and I'm the first marketing hire at a startup, like, what do you recommend? Because you mentioned now that there is some money being spent on to clear the space, how you say,
Mm-hmm.
while you build the content. So can you go into a bit more detail there, and how you actually would spent the first, 90 days setting all of this up?
Yeah. So basically, the idea is if the first thing that you do in as a marketer as you start your podcast and LinkedIn with no following, you will probably get fired before the results play out. And so, in order to move with that, it's actually, I think it's just the smartest way to do it is what would be the first thing you do? If there are high buying intent paid search keywords, you should definitely bid on those first. You should definitely have that figured out first so that when the people are searching for you, they find you. It makes perfect sense. The next thing, which I think is the real nuance in this whole strategy, is instead of just posting, like if you created that, we created this video, and instead of just posting it on LinkedIn when we have no following and get 2 likes and wait a long time of posting and posting and posting for that to figure it out, why wouldn't you figure out all the people that you wanted to distribute to and just pay in the short term to get it in front of them?
Right. I
It
think that's the piece. Yeah.
accelerates the process of allowing the organic to happen. Um, and then over time, at some point you should hit such a scale that if you're good, if the content's good, if your targeting's right, if you're the right people, like if your message is on point, then over time you should actually be able to lower or stop kind of like the increase in spend in order, because the organic is working so well. And we'll do that. Like in 2015 is kind of when I figured this out. We were running Facebook ads targeted at exactly who we wanted to sell to, and went from 0 followers to 20,000 in the matter of 6 months. And then our organic started to work. And then obviously Facebook algorithm changed, and that it didn't really work out, but the paid was still incredibly underpriced and drove a lot of business results in the short term. While we worked on, we had, by the time I left, we had 35 high quality long form videos that were on our website that were sending out via email, that were chopping up on social, and paying to distribute the little micro clips. I think it's because of the way that companies score their paid channels, nobody does it. And so it seems so obvious to me because I've been doing it for 5 years, but you look around the world and it's like, oh, we spent $1,000 on these LinkedIn ads and we didn't get any leads. It was a failure. I just think is really short-sighted.
Right. So what you do is you chop up the videos and then you promote the short clips that are that are around topics that your potential customers really care about.
It doesn't have to be videos for that matter. Like case study, or I love the idea of short form written content that's actually, the ideas are pulled from the videos. It takes a lot of work to be able to cold targeted get someone to consume a video in the feed. And so I found different ways to position the content in order to get someone to engage, and short form written is what I'm converging on through paid, mainly through Facebook. We don't do a lot of short form written on LinkedIn just because it's not cost effective to do it that way. And yeah, that's how I do it. We did do a lot of brand videos on Facebook in 2016. I'm sure that I've watched other companies do it on LinkedIn and with success. And so like it can work. It's just it's not my primary strategy.
What's your advice for up and coming marketing leaders, or even, peers of yours who have the same amount of experience like today? Maybe let me rephrase the question. If you could kind of tell your 20-year-old self, past self, some advice, what would you try to impart if I want to be like a modern marketing leader that actually gets results?
Yeah. So I think this is for everyone, and it's worked really well for me, is challenge the things that are happening today. And stop doing the things that don't work. And when you stop doing the things that don't work, you would be amazed at how much time and energy and resources and money. You have to do the things that do work. And when you have all of those different things and you do the things that do work, they work dramatically better because you're actually focused on them. And so like, that is essentially what I do. Like we don't do a lot of things that I know are just like low efficiency or super mature or expensive channels, and we don't use them because it allows us to do the things that we know work the best incredibly well. And I think there are not a lot of marketers that have that mindset.
Mm-hmm. I mean, most of the time when we get into a company nowadays, it's a lot of the first couple of months is actually just turning off current activities that they're doing. I mean, it's fascinating, you know, like there is so much energy spent on like 5 different social channels, but none of them done right. And
Mm-hmm.
just like how you describe it, like you do one channel really well and then it starts working. That's
Mm-hmm.
so do you think, like, if you would have to say, like, what are some meta skills for a marketing leader today to acquire or to get better at, that kind of helps you do everything else a lot better at your job?
Number one is business acumen.
What does
Business
that mean?
acumen and a deep understanding about how all the other functions work. Like I find myself a much better strategist and leader because I've developed products before. I know the things that it takes to make a hardware or a software product. I know how
Mm-hmm.
to create a business case to present to the board about whether or not we should do this. And I've actually killed products before in that same way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so being able to understand not only marketing but also all the other functions and how important they are. I think another one, kind of in that same vein, is having a deep understanding and empathy for sales. Not that you need to be a salesperson, but that you need to understand it. I think that's a big one. The next key one is just being customer obsessed, like being have a understanding about what people actually do, and how people actually learn and how people actually want to buy, which is typically very misaligned with how companies do their marketing. And then the last one, well, maybe two others. The next one is really, really understanding how to report with confidence to the board and executives about the things that you're doing and the impact that it's driving. And then lastly, know how to create and distribute content
Mm-hmm.
like that. Know how to do those things in a way that buyers want and that people engage with, I think is a skill that a lot of current CMOs don't have.
How like, what's the kind of, if you would build a marketing team from the ground up for a B2B SaaS company, like how would you distribute? Obviously, it varies from company to company, but let's try to generalize as much as possible here. What are the sequence of kind of jobs you would hire for in order to build up a marketing team? Let's say you're the first marketer and now you are
Mm-hmm.
tasked with building a team.
I've done this and I give this advice a lot. And so, for a small team, and let's just for the sake of conversation, actually, let's not. So if we go in this direction, I was going to change the direction and narrow the scope, but I won't. And so inside of the team, what I think that you need, and this doesn't need to necessarily be on the marketing team, it can be somewhere else in the organization, but you need a subject matter expert.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're selling to CFOs and you got a bunch of marketers that don't know anything about finance, you're going to have trouble. And so you need a subject matter expert. That one, in a lot of companies, unless you're selling to marketers or salespeople, will probably come from a different function inside of the business, and that's fine. You can just borrow them and architect it. The next one would be the creator, the person that can write graphic design, shoot video,
Yeah.
edit video, those types of things. The next one would be distribution. Most companies will segment distribution based on channel. Like we need one person for AdWords and we need one person for Facebook. When you do that, you actually incentivize people to do the wrong things to demonstrate the success in that channel. It's no wonder that people are running only performance marketing on Facebook, which is an awareness channel, not a brand, or sorry, it's an awareness channel, not an intent channel. But all of a sudden people are running 100% direct response because they need to prove the ROI of the channel.
Right.
And so I would just have one person that can distribute content across all the mediums. A good distributor. It's been weird as I think about this because I've started to break up a marketing team into content creation and content distribution. And so distribution, email, organic social, paid social. If you want to run like mid funnel, mid intent type keywords on AdWords to content pieces like Be My Guest, those types of different things, distributor. And then the next one would probably be a product marketer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I've actually made this mistake early in my career where I solely focused on creating content. And then I kind of, put it out there. And I was not, focusing on the distribution part at all. Like what? And then I think I read somewhere, spend 30% of your time on actually creating the content and then 70% on distributing it. Like, what's your take on that? Because, you are now saying like, okay, there's a content creation team and a content distribution team even. So how do you handle that? Especially also when you talk to clients, because I've seen this as being a notion that is very common out there.
Very few people focus on distributing content. Yeah. And if they are focused on distributing it, they're optimizing it for SEO, and that's it. And so I think that is probably, like, if you really boil it down, like in essence, what I'm good at. And so yeah, I mean, going into companies that you look on they have 5 case studies, brilliant stories about how companies have had success with their product, and you go into Google Analytics and over the past 6 months, 34 people have visited those web pages. You know that they can't distribute content. Companies that build a gated like resource center and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars producing content for that thing and can't get people to even log in.
Right.
Companies that you watch and they have 20,000 followers on LinkedIn and post a case study with a link and get 2 likes, and both those people are their employees. Like those are things where people just do. It's super clear that people do not understand distribution of content.
Yeah.
And if you don't know how to distribute it, what's the point of making it?
Mm-hmm. But it's still, I mean, it's a tricky thing, right? Because on the one hand, I think it's super important to have kind of a, lead measure of saying like, okay, I do 1 podcast a week, or I send 1 newsletter a week, or I mean, whatever content you're creating, or blog posts, whatever. But then also like, getting into this kind of quantity first, especially if you're starting out, versus then also trying to wrap your head around like distributing it all. Like what comes first for you? Because you also need to have, would you rather do 1 podcast every 4 weeks, and then taking a lot of time distributing that? Or would you do it the other way around? You know what I mean?
The real answer is both, and it comes back to focus. Mm-hmm. If you don't have enough time that you can only produce a podcast once every 4 weeks, then you shouldn't be doing a podcast. You should stop doing other stuff. And so, yeah, I really do think that it comes down to focus on this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think we need to wrap up soon. What kind of education material? I think education is a is a big issue in the marketing space today, because most of what's out there is pretty much like best practices,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, people are
Best
copying that from
practices.
exactly from all over the place, and like they're copy pasting these best
It's
practices
the
and wonder
it's the
why they don't work.
2011 best practices that have been copied into different ebooks and blogs over the
Exactly.
past 10 years. Yeah.
And I mean, Google is terrible at actually surfacing the best content in my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
nowadays. And so, at least if you're not super well versed in Googling. So what kind of resources, courses, or even books or people to follow, do you recommend? Like, how do you go about educating your team, or like telling them to educate, or how have you educated?
Yeah, for sure. There was I'm gonna get to that in 1 second, but there was one point I wanted to get deeper with you on
Hmm.
on the content side, which is on the metrics of content. And so I think that a lot of companies don't have success with content or don't do it at all because of how they measure it. And so I get this question a lot from people. It's like, which piece of your content drives the most leads? And the truth is that
Sure.
there's not any one piece. It is a collection of momentum that is created as a brand execution over time. And I think a lot of people just misunderstand that, which either drives them to do the wrong things with content, i.e., gate it for email addresses, lead magnet, or either do the wrong things with the content or just not do it, or just not do the content at all and go back to running $200,000 a month in Google AdWords because they can measure it. And then on the resources side, the things that I do with my team is I do the things that I believe in, and I challenge them to do the things that we believe in as well. So several people inside of our company create content for LinkedIn.
Hmm.
Several people have a podcast show.
Hmm.
Um, Several people like listen, consume my LinkedIn or our podcast or our guests on our live show or whatever, and people learn through osmosis. I mean, when it comes down to it, and it's ironic because I posted about this today. It's like we do all the things we tell our customers to do, and so like we know how to. Our people know how to measure them, know how to explain them, know how to do them, and that's how we learn and get better. So, but for people that are listening here, like really, I'm getting a ton of really strong feedback on the State of Demand Gen podcast. It's on Apple or Spotify. It's the podcast we put on. It's a mashup of a lot of different content types that we put out every week, somewhere between 3 and 5 episodes a week that we're doing. Would highly recommend that. I get messages about people that have, gotten promoted to head of growth, or got a way better job, or changed industries, or built a following on LinkedIn of 15,000 people just by following the formula that's laid out there. So if anyone has aspirations to either grow in their career or do something new, would highly recommend you check it out.
I can vouch for that as well. Very last question.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we talked a lot about marketing teams and, you know, growth strategy, setting that up. When do I pull in an agency?
I think it's a really nuanced question. The things, the my true feeling on this as a business owner is that you don't want to outsource things that are that require strategic understanding of customers.
Mhm.
So content creation, I see companies that outsource their like thought leadership. It makes no sense.
That's just funny. Yeah.
It makes no sense. So I think I don't have a clear like answer on that. And it's also like, when you say agency, it can mean anything. Like I consider what we do more like a consulting firm, like McKinsey, um, than an agency where you just like buy people for a specific thing. Companies call us all the time and they're like, hey, we want to spend $35,000 on LinkedIn ads. Can we do 10% ad spend? And I'm like, that's not what we do. Like, you want to
Yeah.
find someone to go push buttons and get you leads for $80 that don't close, go somewhere else. Like, that's not what we do. So yeah, I mean, I'm not sure that I answer your question, but that's how I feel.
I think you touched exactly like what I wanted to hear, which is like if you want to do content, like especially I mean thought leadership content, like don't outsource this kind of stuff. I also think like if you want to get better at like building, systems, and you don't have, as you mentioned, the business acumen to do so, or um, you need jobs in actually building out certain channels where you don't have the expertise, and you relied on best practices beforehand. It might be a good
Yeah,
option. That's
I
kind of
actually
what
have
I wanted to
I've
get
got a
at.
pretty cool. As you were talking, I think it formed. It's like when you bring, and it really, again, it depends on who you're bringing in. Like that really matters. But I think the right time to bring someone is when you need to accelerate change. Like you need to get some.
I like that.
You can try and do it yourself, and it's going to take you 18 months. Or you can have someone come in and help you, and it's going to take 3 months. It's up to you.
Yeah.
But over time, what I found is that the speed is important. Like opportunity cost is huge, and I don't think a lot of companies factor that in when they make budgeting decisions.
Thank you very much, Chris. It was a super interesting
Yeah, this is a
uh,
blast. Thanks for having me.
discussion. Thank you very much for your sage advice, and I'll hope you put out a lot more of those videos. And then also, where can people find you? You mentioned the podcast. What's the URL people can go to, or just straight up on Spotify?
Yeah, Spotify or Apple. It's called State of Demand Gen. It's the podcast, or you can follow me on LinkedIn. I put out the micro clips, and I usually link to the podcast in my posts.
Yeah, once you follow him, you see him all over. I promise you. All right.
All right,
Cheers,
good to
Chris.
see
Thank you
you. Hope
very
to do this
much.
again soon. Have a good one.
Cheers. Thank you very
Bye.
much. Bye.